The Town Plan and Zoning Commission meeting of June 28th to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have the secretary read the roll.
Chairman Aida. Commissioner Camillo.
Here.
Commissioner Murphy. Commissioner Minor. Commissioner Payne.
Here.
Commissioner Sierra.
Here.
Commissioner Sobolewski.
Here.
Commissioner Metallica. Commissioner Giangrave. Commissioner Fox.
Here.
We'll have Commissioner Fox sit in for Commissioner Minor. Mr. Planner, approval of the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
Next item on the agenda is public participation for items that are not listed on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes per person. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to speak under public participation? Seeing none, we'll go into remarks by commissioners. Any commissioner remarks, Stanley?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Aida. I noticed that the assistant zoning officers out there on weekends picking up signs on the turnpike. I'm a little concerned about his safety out there. I would like to know, or if it's possible, that he could get a town vehicle to do that. I understand he may be using his own. You know, it's, again, my own, I'm looking at two things. A, it's the volume of vehicles out there. And two, you know, he doesn't have a vehicle that's clearly marked Town of Newington on it. So how do you know who's pulling up what signs? It's just a thought. I mean, I'm just interested in the safety issue.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Payne.
Yeah, maybe we could put it on a list and at our next meeting find out what he's doing, because we don't even know how he's doing it. He may be parked in a parking lot and walking over and picking the signs up and putting them in his car. So until Mike is here and we figure out exactly what procedures he's taken, then we could go from there.
That's fine. Thank you. I just,
Yeah.
you know,
And
again,
I think
I'm just
it's
looking
I
at.
think it's important too.
Right. I just, you know, the way things are today in this world, you know, everybody looks to nail everybody. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioner remarks? I have one comment. I had the opportunity to watch the council meeting last night, and I have to say, Commissioner Fox, that I was kind of surprised that you got up and represented yourself as speaking for the Town Plan and Zoning Commission on an item that they were discussing. I don't know what you were thinking, but no one goes out and speaks for the commission unless there's a consensus of the commission and there's some indication of which way we're going on the item. I wasn't even aware that there was discussion at this body about the 824 review. I think it was inappropriate, and I think you have to watch it. I mean, you want to come and speak as a landowner and a property owner and as an individual, that's fine. But when you represented, you're talking as a commissioner of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission, then I got a problem with that. Go ahead.
If well, he thought it was appropriate, you know, then I'm sorry. But if you thought while you were watching, I was representing the commission, I apologize, because I did go in as an individual, just saying what my opinion on whether the 8-24 should be before or after.
Yeah, I understand that. When you got up, you said that you were here as Michael Fox. But then when you got into your discussion about the 824, you put it out for the council and the mayor that you were a member of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission, and you made reference to also that you didn't think that the staff would even look at a conceptual plan on the town hall building renovation. And I don't think you got any indication or any feedback from the staff whether they would or wouldn't. I mean, it's an item that we haven't even discussed at the table here yet. So you got to be careful how you represent yourself. That's all.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner remarks? Okay, next item on the agenda is public hearings. I'll have the vice chairman read the procedure which we're following and then go into the three petitions that we're having public hearings.
Procedures for the public hearing. In order of proceedings at the public hearing shall be as follows. A, convening by the chairman. B, reading of the notice by the commission secretary or a commission designated by the chairman to act in his stead. C, identification and location of the property involved by the town planner. D, a statement of the issue to be considered by the chairman or the town planner. E, presentation by the applicant limited to 20 minutes unless a specific extension is granted by the chair. F, persons wishing to speak in favor of the application limited to 2 minutes per person. G, persons wishing to speak in opposition to the application limited to 3 minutes per person. H, rebuttal by the applicant limited to 5 minutes total. I, rebuttal by the opposition limited to 5 minutes total. During a public hearing, it shall be within the discretion of the chairman whether the time limitations should be varied slightly, provided the commission consents to any such variance. In no case shall an extension be for more than 20% of the allotment indicated above, or 1 minute, whichever is greater.
Okay, would you please read petition 0917, which is the first public hearing?
Petition 0917, text amendment, new section 3.25, open space zone, townwide Newington Open Space Committee, applicant, contact.
Can we have someone from the Open Space Committee come forward and make the presentation to us, please? Or whoever is involved. Thank you. We've gone over this several times, but it is a public hearing, so we want to give the public some information as to what we're doing.
Yes, good evening, commissioners, and thank you for, getting us to this point. We've done a lot of work together jointly on, I'm sorry, my name is Bernadette Conway, 177 Hartford Avenue, Chair of the Open Space Committee.
Gail Bedraco, 21 Isabel Terrace, member of the Open Space Committee.
And we are here for the petition for the proposed zoning text amendment for the open space zone. We've discussed this quite a bit after several meetings, and as presented, we're very excited to be here and get to this point to where we're having a public hearing about it. And are there any questions that anyone has?
Any commissioner questions for the committee?
I know that Gail Bedraco has something.
I can just make should I come up during?
No, you can make a
speaking?
statement now if
Okay.
it pertains
Right,
to
yeah.
this as far as,
Okay, Newington's a highly developed town, and we have very little open remaining space, but also we don't have a real comprehensive plan for managing, preserving, or acquiring open space, and that's one of the purposes of the Open Space Committee. And I'm very pleased that this year it seems to be active and dedicated. But back to protecting open space, many residents in town feel that we have areas that are protected, but in actuality they're not protected. And the most blatant examples within the recent past was the Cedar Mountain development. A lot of town residents were stunned that there was going to be, they always thought Cedar Mountain is Cedar Mountain, and when was the planned development up there, there was a lot of surprise. Another recent example was the proposed development of the community center on Mill Pond Park, and again, people thinking that it's a park, how could, we would never build on it, but yet it was proposed, and it took grassroots efforts in both of these examples to preserve those parcels. So that's what led to the Open Space Committee spearheading kind of a zone change, which will create a new zoning designation for, at this point, it's just existing parks and parcels. We're not changing the use of any kind of land. We're just kind of protecting it in its current use. So, and even though we realize that the town has the ability and the authority at some point in the future to do what, they're exempt from the zoning regulations. If this is actually put on land use maps, it will take a little bit more thought and a little bit more deliberative action by people to make sure that, is this something we really want to do as a town, to take some of the open space and use it for another purpose. Open space does contribute to quality of life, particularly Newington is very small. We've got the Berlin Turnpike, we've got Route 9, we've got a highway, running right through the center of town, 175. So we really do need to protect what space we have. One thing that I just want to point out is this, as normal procedure, any proposed change for zoning is sent through to the CROG staff, and they review each proposed zoning regulation to make sure that's not in conflict and that there's, approval. And most of the time, they just kind of, they review it, and yeah, the staff agrees that doesn't have any significant conflict with the regional plans and whatever. But in the particular case for Newington's referral for the proposed zoning map and regulation amendments to create an open space zoning district, they actually added an additional comment beyond that. And the comment was, this proposed rezoning of these lands to open space offers additional protection to ensure they remain as open space and thus are in keeping with the regional goal to support protection of more open space in the capital region, as approved in the Capital Region Plan of Conservation and Development, Vibrant Green Connecticut Competitive 2014 to 2024. So not only is this proposed zone in concert with Newington's 2020 plan, but it's in concert with the regional plan as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Planner, you have any comments?
No, actually, Committee Member Budrako summed it up pretty well.
Commissioner, comments on what's being proposed here? You have it's been a work in progress, so we should know pretty much what's in the text amendment. Commissioner Sobieski.
Thank you, Chairman Aida. Yes, CROG was, the last meeting I did attend, Vernon was pushing through a open space protection like we were doing, and CROG was very interested in that, and they said that they would like to see most of the cities and towns in their region do the same to try to protect the property of open space. So I know that I believe they would be very supportive of this.
Bob, you got anything you want to add?
Just that I agree with everything that's been said. We've taken a long, hard look at this. There's been a lot of work that's gone into it. I feel that we reached a good place with this. It can only be for the betterment of the town and our residents, and I'm in total agreement with this.
Any other commissioner remarks? Commissioner Payne?
Yep. I noticed a few things that I'd like to talk about. At 3.25.15, it says land specifically designated as managed or dedicated community open space. That's good because we do have managed and dedicated. But at the top, third line, it says all parcels indicated as dedicated open space. I think maybe it should be consistent with 3.25.15, and it should say managed or dedicated open space.
Mr. Planner, does that make sense?
I didn't follow your last sentence. I see your point about how we use the phrase dedicated open space differently.
Yeah, because all open space that we're managing here is the dedicated and the managed open space. And so we talk about it down on 3.25. I think it just should be consistent up on the top too.
Okay, so 3.25.1.5 should read land specifically designated.
That's correct.
As,
No, the way it's written is correct. He wants to add under 3.25
No.
The introductory paragraph.
the introductory paragraph.
Well,
He wants to add all parcels indicated as dedicated open space. He wants to add and managed open space.
but that would be something different,
Why?
because if you go to page 19 of the plan of development, dedicated open space is a specific category. It's a thing. It's a classification. So if you want the reg to use the same language everywhere, then it's the 3.25.15 that should be changed. Now, let's back up a second. 3.25.15 or 3.25.1 is a list of activities that are allowed as of right in this new open space zone. And the last category is land specifically designated as managed or dedicated community open space. All right, that's the phrase that should be changed to reflect the phrase in the first paragraph, so that we use the same language.
Why aren't we including the managed space?
Because there's no such thing as managed space, whereas there is such a thing as dedicated open space.
There is managed space
All right.
here.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, because managed open space is something different. Managed open space includes land that is privately owned. And one of the pretty much early decisions that was made as this amendment, as this regulation was evolving, was that pretty much everybody agreed that it would only be public land, that there wouldn't be any private land in here. And these light green parcels, these managed open space parcels, those are privately owned.
One, right?
Let's see. No, I think all of them are privately owned. There's the Balf property up in the, all right, folks, let me see if I can, unfortunately, the copy that's in your agenda packets is black and white. So let me see if I can find the color map of what we're talking about here so the public can understand what we're talking about.
So I think I follow your point. Then maybe you're right that 3.2515, it shouldn't say managed because only land that's in the dedicated open space can be
It's part of this.
as part of this regulation because it doesn't include the private land. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. Here, this should make it clear to the public. These dark green parcels are the parcels that the committee is proposing be put into this new zone called open space. The lighter green parcels, which are, and I'm scrolling down to the key to this map, are managed open space, is a different category.
Where are they? Can you
Well, let's see.
indicate
Okay,
one?
here's one. The farm,
Farm.
the Eddy Farm across the street, and the Balf property up here. And maybe in the future, if the TPC decides to get a little more aggressive and zone the Eddy Farm open space, you could. But at the moment, that's not the proposal that the Open Space Committee has presented.
Okay,
Eddie's
so to
Farm
make
is-
it consistent, let's make the change to so that they're both the same.
Right. So changes.
Yeah, just change the word. So if we proceed with this tonight, we want to make that as part of our conditions.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And then the other concern I have is it says that buildings that support the primary use of the property and whose floor area does not exceed 10% of the open space parcel. Well, if you have like a 40-acre parcel or even a 20-acre parcel of land, that could be a big building, 10% of 40 acres. So is the 10% too big of a number for allowing a building to be up to?
Right, that's a good point, and the committee talked about that. But the committee felt that since any such application would have to come before you as a special permit with a public hearing with lots of input, it's highly unlikely that TPC would approve a special permit for a building that would be that huge. Whereas to try to come up with a regulation that was reasonable and would allow, let's say, a golf course to be able to have a clubhouse or a shed to put golf carts and things. That's what this regulation, that's what this last regulation is for, so that there could be a building of some sort that's supported. And the 10%, again, that was a number that the committee felt was large enough to allow the commission on a case-by-case basis to approve appropriate-sized buildings, but not so small as to make it unusable.
Are we holding ourselves to where somebody could force us to go to the 10% or not?
Well, they would have to convince the commission that such a use was in keeping with the character of the neighborhood, was sustainable, all the different things that the commission has to reach a favorable finding of before it approves any special permit.
Okay, thank you. And then the last
Just
thing,
respond to that. Also, we did research of, throughout the country of open space, areas that did, and 10% seemed to be the norm. Of course, I think, when you talk about California or Nevada or Ohio, the parcels they're talking are a lot larger. But this was also meant, we felt that we needed to put some kind of percentage in there, because I think the original wording was small buildings, and that's very much subject to interpretation.
okay, all right, I'm satisfied on that. And then the last point I have, which I know you're aware of, is I don't believe the cemeteries and burial grounds should be in here because it contradicts what our 2020 plan says. Our 2020 plan does not have cemeteries and burial grounds in open space. It has it in ancient burial grounds. It's a separate category. So I think that should be just taken out, is my feeling.
Any commissioner comments on that specific item about the burial grounds? No feelings either way on it?
Just a logistical thing, because the cemeteries are shown as dark green on that open space plan, and at the beginning of the section we say all parcels indicated as dedicated open space on page 19 will be zoned as open space. That would be carving out an exception, which you can do, but
They're actually in the green space.
mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons, again, that we included those, we did have discussions on it, is even though the primary purpose is not recreation, in many communities, including Newington, West Hill Cemetery, people walk through there. It's a place sometimes of quiet reflection, passive, so we felt that it really did fit.
Okay, I don't have a problem. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have the couple of changes that you'll make note of.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'd like to have you please sit down and open it up to the public for their comments.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this text amendment for open space? Seeing none, is there anyone here in opposition to the text amendment as proposed for open space? Okay, what is the commission's feelings on this?
I'd like to make a motion that we close and move to old business.
Second.
You want to move it to old business tonight, Stanley?
Yeah, if that's,
Okay.
thank you.
So motion made and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move it to old business as item B. Can you please read the next petition, 2017?
Petition 20-17, moratorium on temporary sign permit applications, section 6.2.1F, temporary sign permits, Town Planning and Zoning Commission applicant.
I will turn it over to the town planner to give an explanation of what this is, and then we'll proceed with the public hearing. We are actually the applicants, the Town Planning and Zoning Commission.
All right, this is simply to extend the existing moratorium, which expires at the end of the week, for possibly another 6 months. The commission doesn't have to extend it for a full 6 months. You could extend it for less than that if you want to. But I do recommend that you extend the moratorium for some amount of time, for at least a couple of months, to give you time to adopt a new temporary sign regulation before the moratorium expires, because the minute the moratorium expires, the ZEO will have to issue permits that can last 12 months. A person can't use it for 12 months. I think it's like 25, maximum 25 days. But the CEO would be compelled to, because at that moment, that would be the law of the land, and he has to issue permits if people comply with the regulations. So that's why I recommend that the commission extend the moratorium for at least a few more months.
Okay, any commissioner comments on this? Commissioner Sarah?
Here we go again. I would say let's extend it for the 6 months. We can always end it early if we need to, but it gives us the time if we do need it. Like folks here in the audience, folks watching on TV, and us, we want to get a resolution to this. We really don't want to go another 6 months, but if we need that time, we will have it. It gives the CEO more time. I just think it makes sense not to cut ourselves short. We could always end it early if we need to.
Commissioner Sobieski?
Yes, I agree with Commissioner Sarah on all his remarks. You know, let's look for the 6 months, but let's try to get this done earlier.
Mike?
I agree.
Commissioner Payne?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman, for the town planner. When we come up with our final regulations for the signs, we have to send it to CROG, correct? And what's the time frame for that? And then having the public hearing?
Right. First of all, well, no, let me just answer your question. I'll make it more complicated. You have to send it to CROG at least 30 days before you can have a public hearing on it.
Okay. So 30 days prior to the public hearing?
Correct.
In your opinion, Mr. Planner, what is the soonest we could get this moratorium off and have a sign regulation and an enforcement regulation?
Well, with
And don't cut your
pride of owner.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah. Well, with pride of ownership, if the commission likes the amendment that the staff presented, and you'll discuss it later tonight, if the commission thinks it's close enough to be worth having a public hearing on, maybe not perfect, but close enough to at least have a hearing on, you could have that hearing. I'm looking to see when the second meeting in July is. July 26th, which is not a full 30 days from now. So you couldn't even have the hearing until your first meeting in August. So that would be the earliest you could have the hearing.
So that's
But you could approve it that night with changes.
So even if we made a few changes and everything, do you think 3 months is sufficient time to have the public hearing and everything, and still have about 2 meetings to discuss the sign regulations?
Yes. This would give you more than 2 meetings.
Okay.
To discuss it.
Okay. Thank you. I think I'm leaning towards trying to get it done faster for the public. I think if 3 months, if we can really put ourselves to it and get it done for the public, we should try to get it done within 3 months, is what I'd like to propose.
That should be a goal that we strive for, but I don't want to have to revisit another public hearing on this moratorium in 3 months. So I would like to either go with the 6 months and work diligently to try to get the thing done in the next couple of months. And that should be our goal. But I don't want to strap our hands to the point where we're a couple of months down the road and we're still not at a point to do this, and we have to come back for another public hearing with the moratorium. Then we start the clock over again for the sign regulation, and we're hurting ourselves by extending the time period, not shortening it. So I think the public has to trust us in the business community that we're working hard to come to a resolution, and we're doing it. We'll try to do it within the next couple of months. Commissioner Fox?
Yeah, I have to agree with the chairman. Like Commissioner Sarah said, we can always get it done. And I really feel that we'd be rushed if we extended it for only 3 months. If it is 6 months, then hopefully we do get it done in 3 months. And then we can get rid of this and make sure that the business people are happy.
Camillo?
Same thing, go for 6 months and try to get it done as early as possible.
Okay, we take your comments, Commissioner Payne, seriously, and we will strive as a goal to try to meet those time periods. Okay, this is a public hearing. Commissioner Fox.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just one quick thing. In the purpose paragraph, town planner states, the purpose of this moratorium is prevent applications, yada, yada, yada. I'm wondering if we should put the word "to" between "is" and "prevent." The purpose is to prevent.
Agreed.
What do you think?
Yeah, that's a typo.
Okay, we'll turn it over to the public. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this application?
You think?
Yes.
Good evening.
Are you speaking in favor of the application with the amendment to proceed with the moratorium?
Yes,
Okay.
with stipulation.
Well, that's-
Gail Whitney, 31 Old Hatchery Lane. I'm also the executive director of the Newington Newington Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for all your comments. I was going to say, make it 3 months, but I agree, you don't want to rush into this, and hope, knowing that you do have the 6 months, hopefully you won't use the 6 months, and that it will be done in 3 months. I just really want this over with, and we really want to get this whole issue finalized. I still do have an issue about the Berlin Turnpike and saying no signage at all on the Turnpike. I did just speak to a new business member yesterday who is very concerned, who came to Newington because he heard what a great town it was and was very excited about opening his business here. He's right on the Turnpike, and he's concerned that he can't put any signs out to show his new business. So I kind of always use this analogy: when they made alcohol legal, not everybody went out and got drunk. So if you make signs legal, I don't think everybody's going to go out and get signs immediately at all their businesses. So I really hope that we can get these A-frame signs, let everybody have opportunity to have them. I still think the 4-month period, I actually think that's more work for the ZEO. I think if you made it 6 months, I think that would at least give more time for the people with businesses to have signage out there. But we're definitely having 2 steps forward instead of 1 step back recently. And I appreciate all your comments, and I really hope we can get this resolved, because the businesses of Newington need to advertise their businesses. And I hate to see all these for lease and for rent sales all through the Turnpike. It seems like there's more every day, and we don't want to lose any more businesses. So thank you.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this moratorium, this temporary sign application? Is there anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to the moratorium? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, I'm Deanna Rainey. I'm at 110 Grandview Drive, Newington. Technically, I'm against the moratorium. I totally understand why you guys are for it, so I would appreciate a fast answer to this, I guess. But I will say it was actually brought up by the chamber president at the time when he was here last, that this is the season to put out signs if we were to put out signs, and 3 months down the road are going to be fall, and then 6 months down the road we're in winter. So that makes it even harder. So if there is any kind of way, I understand, people would have the permit for an entire year. So that's what makes it tough, but they would only get to use it for 25 days. Is there a way to make the permit end on December 31st? Again, a lot of this goes over my head. So that's why we're here talking to you guys about it, right? So that would be my thing. And especially because the weather's nice now, you see guys on the Turnpike holding signs. So that's a whole nother thing. So I would just, if you can take that into account at all, that's just my concerns. Thank you.
The way that the planner wrote the regulation from input from the Town Plan and Zoning Commission is that you would get 45 days. But it's also could be renewed. You could come in and ask for a renewal of an additional 45 days. And That would probably be done administratively as long as there was no problems with your original application. If you came in and asked for a 45-day permit, and we gave it to you, and you followed the rules and took the signs in at night, kept them within the distance that we require to the front door and everything else, and you decided that at the 40th day you came in and said, hey, we want to renew for 45 days, the town planner would bring it to this commission and say, listen, we had a sign application come in, and it's a renewal, and we would ask him, has there been any complaints? Are they following the rules? And if they were, we would probably say, go ahead and give them an additional 45 days as administratively. If there was problems, we would probably ask the planner to have the applicant come back before the commission and explain why we should give them additional time. So that's how the process would work. I hope that explains it to you.
Me?
Yeah.
No, I didn't understand that at all, to be honest with you. Because to me, I thought the rules were 25 consecutive days and that was it, right?
That's under the existing regulations.
Right.
The new regulations is a permit for 45 days.
No, for 4
Tentative
months.
new
I'm
regulations.
sorry, 4 months.
Right.
I misstated. It's four months. So you'd come in, you'd get a permit for 4 months. Then you could reapply for an additional 4 months.
Under the tentative what you're proposing, right?
Right.
But the rules that are actually in place, that if you were to lift the moratorium, they would just be 25 days, right?
Right.
Yeah, we're trying to give you more.
Right, which we're all for,
Okay.
but I'm just saying, in the meantime, again, I get why you guys are doing the moratorium, I
Okay.
do.
Okay.
If there's any possible way,
We'll speed it up.
yes, but I don't know. I just had to give my 2 cents if there was any possible way for us to have the 25 days from now till December 31st. People can use it in the summertime, then great, but I get why not.
I really don't think we're gonna take it until December.
Right.
Oh, so you don't have to worry about it.
Awesome.
I don't think it's gonna take that long.
Okay, is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to the moratorium? Okay, seeing none, Commissioner comments or remarks on this? Pretty much it was explained pretty much by the planner, and we've had comments. What is the wishes of the commission?
Make a motion with old business, vote on it tonight.
Second.
Motion made and second to move it to old business and vote on it tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we will move that to old business as item C. Vote on it tonight. Would you please read petition 2117?
Petition 21-17, special permit section 3.2.4, senior assisted living at 751 Russell Road, HDC1 LLC, owner applicant John Koskowski, CME Associates Incorporated, 33 Wilbur Crossway, Mansfield, Connecticut. Contact.
Is the applicant here? Or his representatives? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and make your presentation, please. And you will try to keep your presentation to the specifics of the petition, which is the special permit process.
Yes, sir. Good evening. For the record, my name's Michael Frisbee. I'm the owner of the property at 751 Russell Road. Tonight, we're here to present what I think is a wonderful project for the town of Newington. I have with me this evening George Prouty from Solutions for Seniors. George has been described to me as a legend in the assisted living industry, and I've hired George to consult on this project to ensure that what I've designed is not only viable, but will also set us apart from the competition in the marketplace. George will briefly describe the project before you, and we'll be able to answer the board's questions with regard to the market needs, building design, and any other senior-related issues associated with this type of development. I also have with me this evening Pete Parent from the engineering firm of CME. Pete will briefly describe the project and explain it, how it was designed in the next phase. and how it is in compliance with the zoning regulations. And he can answer any specific questions the board may have about that. Before I hand it over to George, I just want to point out some beneficial things that I find important to mention and would want everyone to be aware of. Number one, there is a demand for really nice assisted living and memory care and independent living space in the Newington market. The reason I'm staying involved in this project is because of what I've learned about the industry over the last few years. Most of us have been through or know someone who has gone through or is going through the process of trying to comfortably care for an aging loved one. In my case, it was my grandparents, and I truly believe getting them into the right facility extended their lives and made it easier for them to transition in place as their needs for assistance increased. Number two, the property is currently vacant, is located on the town line. You know, it's considered a gateway to Newington, and as we present this evening, I hope the board will recognize the effort made in the detail and the design of the buildings, the landscaping, and the site design that will allow me to build and maintain a project that will make the town proud to have us here. Three, I've met with the town assessor, and upon favorable approval, construction and opening of this project, it will bring substantial real estate tax dollars to the town with very limited demand for services. So at this time, I'm happy to introduce Mr. George Prouty and let him briefly explain to you what we have in mind with regard to the project.
Under section 3.2, there's a section that's specific to special permits, and under 3.2.4, it specifically relates to assisted living, rest homes, and hospitals. So there's all under that section. There's subsections that have like requirements. You should go over at least those four or five items: location, height of building, site area, and site requirements. Those are the things that the proposed special permit should address.
Yeah, and we're planning to address that as part of.
Okay, just so you know that's what we're looking for.
Thank you.
Good evening. As Mike said, my name is George Prouty. I've been working with Mike at HDC 1 for the last 6 months to help to develop a plan that is both workable and buildable, and will be a great asset to the community. Without boring you a little bit of the details about my background, I've been in the senior living business and industry for 35 years. Perhaps more important than the duration of my tenure in the industry is the fact that I've developed over that period of time about 2,500 units in 9 different states of a variety of different types of senior living, and 5 of those communities are here in Connecticut. The first being in Southbury, the second being in Chester, and then 3 assisted living communities that I owned and operated, one being what is now called Green Ridge Place in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. So my experience is not simply experience from a book or from a theory, but from the practical development and operation of communities. And I have some background that I'd be happy to enter into the record if you'd like it that way. What we've done is to develop a senior destination, which will encompass two separate buildings, and both of the buildings will be 5 stories. Both of the buildings will serve seniors in different ways. The first building, the assisted living building, will have 122 apartments, and in particular, 28 of those apartments will be provided specifically for people that have memory deficits and need to be in a program that helps them with their activities and in a safe and controlled environment. The balance of the community, 94 other apartments, will be a combination of 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. In bringing the projects forward, one of the things that was done that Mike actually had done prior to the time that I got involved was to commission a market study by a nationally known researcher, Margaret Wild. And the results of that study were produced to give the following information. First of all, there was a very strong demand for the memory care program in the market area, which is within 5 miles, Newington, Weathersfield principally, there are no memory care units. There are no apartments that are specifically designed and programmed for folks with memory deficits, which means that if a resident, whether in one of the 2 fine programs that already exist here in Newington, becomes unsafe or becomes in need of a program that addresses someone that has dementia, whether Alzheimer's specifically or the dementia of old age, they have to leave. And the closest programs are in Rocky Hill. The other thing that we have done, the second part of the market study demonstrated that there was a strong need for, shall we say, new style assisted living units. Both of the programs, and my friend Mr. Casey is sitting in the background who runs Cedar Mountain Commons. Jim and I have been industry peers for many years.
We gotta change the tape, sir.
Pardon me?
We have to change the tape so that we get it on the record. Just give us a second.
Okay, go ahead.
You're all set.
Yeah.
You're all set. The tape's
Set?
running.
Okay. The point I was getting to is that one of the things that the market study pointed out is that both of the communities that exist currently in Newington and serve the marketplace are 15 years old. And so the person that those communities were built for was more of the GI generation than what we know of the Silver Tsunami, the 1945 birth date of the first wave of the baby boom. Now, the truth of the matter is that the market has changed, and the 75-year-old is not the likely move-in candidate for assisted living because of health and well-being. But the fact is that this community is addressing the future needs. One of the other things that we have done, and then I'll get to some of the statistics, is that 24 of the apartments that will be in the building are 2-bedroom apartments, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartments. What we've found in working with seniors is that it is frequent that one spouse of a couple is sometimes significantly more frail than the other, and so in order to share an apartment where they can receive services, there needs to be a 2-bedroom accommodation. So, having said that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about the details of the apartments or the programs or the other attendant accessory services. But I believe that the presentation that we've made with respect to the plans addresses the code required height and other statistics and requirements, and if there's something that we've missed, why, we'd be happy to address that.
Any commissioner comments or questions you have at this point? Okay, you can proceed with, we don't have any questions at this time.
Well, we're still talking about the special permit, so,
Right.
With regard to the special permit, what we're proposing is the use, it's allowed use in the zone, the Berlin Turnpike zone. We meet the height requirements, we meet the parking requirements, as you'll see on the site plan part of it. So we're here to answer any questions, because we believe our application meets the requirement for the special permit.
Okay, we'll be able to tell whether you meet those requirements when we look at the site plan and site plan review.
Sure.
So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to the public for public input and questions, and let's see what they have to say, and then we'll proceed from there. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this application for a special permit for assisted living?
So my name is Luke Jensen of Jensen Machine Company, 721 Russell Road. I'm going to speak in favor of the application with some caveats and a few additional comments and questions. I have my comments written out here that I'd like to share with the commissioners just for the sake of the record. I'll pass out. Pass those down. The Jensen Machine Company was incorporated and has proudly operated at 721 Russell Road since 1946. We directly abut the proposed development site to the north. For 71 years, we've paid taxes to the town of Newington and provided employment to residents of Newington and other nearby towns. We believe in being good neighbors and supporting the community. We see how this proposed senior assisted living facility could provide additional tax base to the town of Newington and potentially serve a need in our community. As you all know, or many of you may know, I see a lot of familiar faces from 2 years ago. The current applicant, Michael Frisbee, along with a co-applicant, proposed the Amera development, which was a continuing care retirement community on the site we are all here to discuss, 751 Russell Road. At the time, we were not contacted by the Amera development applicants regarding any aspect of their proposed development. And in fact, it was not even until the public hearing on March 25th, 2015, that we learned of their intent to use our driveway as a shared driveway to access their parking lot from Russell Road. The changes that were presented then included modifications to our driveway on the right-of-way and on the Jensen Machine property. And you can really imagine our surprise at the time when we saw it on the screen for the first time during the hearing. Thus far, our experience with the applicants for today's proposed development at this same site, petition 2117 and petition 2217, has been better. The applicant, Michael Frisbee, has approached us on more than one occasion to share site plans, understands our needs, and address some of our concerns that we raised during the 2015 Amera development proposal. We appreciate these steps towards being a good neighbor. We are pleased to see that the plans include a permanent easement on the south side of our building, which will allow us to continue to access the back of our building. Also, as we understand from the discussions with the applicants, this area, as presented or to be presented, is designed to allow trucks to be able to turn around in that area. However, we feel, as we did in 2015, that the shared driveway between the Jensen Machine Company and the proposed development is a safety concern. We regularly receive 18-wheeler trucks for deliveries and shipments. Our current driveway exits south from the front of our parking lot onto Russell Road, not far from the exit ramp there with the Berlin Turnpike. It's difficult enough as is for truck and delivery drivers to have to deal with a congested area with a stop sign and a short distance from our from our driveway. To now be aware of other traffic slipping in and out from behind and ahead of them from the direction of the street, and the proposed development would only compound the problem. We feel that if the proposed development is to have access to Russell Road, the best and safest option would be for the applicant to reroute the Jensen Machine driveway to exit north out of the Jensen Machine parking lot along the right-of-way onto Russell Road. This change would separate the Jensen Machine and the proposed development traffic, and also as an added benefit, this change would also reduce the grade and/or the necessary length of the driveway as the Russell Road elevation increases as one travels north. And then finally, we just have two questions for the applicants based on the plans that were submitted to the town. The plans show a concrete stairway on the south entrance to the Jensen Machine building. That door is currently at ground level. I guess we had understood from our discussions that the ground would not be removed from around our building. And I guess the question is this true, or is this not the case? The second question was how this proposal affects the parking at Jensen Machine. Our parking already is limited, and we need all the spots that we currently have. Anyways, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll take these into consideration when we look at the site plan. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Mr. Stam.
Chip Stam, 35 Judge Lane, Newington. Yeah, I was very interested and I speak in favor of this because of the amount of two-bedroom units. My parents were on a waiting list at Cedar Mountain Commons for 4 years before they could get a two-bedroom, two-bath. And they actually had to customize a studio and open a wall up because we went to Hartford Hospital. So I'm glad to see it's more like, 25% of the units. Up there it was like 14%. I think they had 65 units and only 4 two-bedrooms. So I'd say it's a very responsible thing for the area and this people in this town, because they don't want to leave Newington. If they've grown up here and they've been here all their life, they want to stay here. I've been on the board of Masonic Care down in Wallingford for 10-15 years, and I can't get him to move down to Wallingford. He wants to be here in Newington, and he's here in Newington, and I think Newington, Weathersfield, they want to stay in town. They don't want to even go to Rocky Hill. So that was my comment, and I'm glad to see that they came up with that amount of two-bedroom, two-bath units. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stam. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Gail Bedreco, 21 Isabel Terrace. I actually have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
The applicant indicated that there would be a substantial tax revenue for the town. I wonder if he could define substantial. I'm just curious as to what the anticipated revenue would be. And then secondarily, again, it's a need. It fits in with, it sounds like much better presentation and more fitting to what the need is than the previous proposal. But recently, I drive home every day through the Turnpike and down through Russell Road to Cedar Street, and DOT recently made a change so that you don't have to stop anymore. So people are kind of getting used to it, and now they're coming down Russell Road and kind of turning right and just zipping right along. So I just caution and think that you need to be very careful about the exit onto Cedar Street, because people now, the speed is actually, when you're coming off of Russell Road, people now are kind of like just zipping through, and depending on where the exit is going to be from this facility, there could be a safety hazard. So if you can just kind of review that and keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay. If the applicant wants to explain what the tax ramifications are for this project, that's fine. But I'm telling you that the commission does not take financial interest into our decision-making. We don't take into the financing or how much taxes it brings in. We look at it specifically for site plan and how it fits the zone and if it meets the special permit requirements. Okay. If he would like to address it, fine. If not, you don't have to.
The reason I brought it up is we wanted to make sure that the project was viable in the first place. And by bringing that up, I had a meeting with the town assessor to see how he would evaluate the location once it was built so that we can put it into the pro forma to make sure that we could, because that would be a significant expense to the project. So I bring it up to say that it's a large, it's a large expense to the project, but by working with him to make sure that we could understand how much it was, we could build a pro forma that works. We're satisfied by working with him. We don't know what the exact number is going to be, but it's going to be a few $100,000 a year to the town of Newington. I didn't bring it up as an incentive. Just wanted to know that, hey, we're looking at all angles to make sure this thing can work. Secondly, the reason I brought it up was just to make sure that folks understood that this type of development in this zone where we're proposing it isn't going to tax the services of the town of Newington. Just because of that too, as well.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone in opposition? Seeing none, what is the pleasure of the commission?
Mr. Chairman, can I suggest you keep the hearing open? Because when you get to the discussion of the site plan,
Yes.
you may learn more about the project that the only remedy to requiring would be through the special permit process. So I suggest you keep the hearing open.
Site plan is not related to the special.
It's extremely related.
It's related, but it's not supposed to, you're not supposed to take one and
No, you are. That's why we usually do discuss them at least before making an action on one. In fact, this was very important with the Amaro decision because the driveway configuration on the Amaro proposal was, as far as I'm concerned, totally unacceptable. But we weren't really aware of that until we had the special permit, the public hearing, and we were able to discuss it with the Jensens and so forth. So the two, you're right that they are separate. But as I say, there may be things about this project that you're not aware of yet in the rather brief presentation that you just got, which will suddenly become apparent to you after the applicants go through their full presentation of the site plan. And at that point, you wouldn't be able to require.
Would they be able to correct it or bring us additional information under the site plan review? Because it relates to the site plan. It's not new information because it's a separate site plan review. This special exception is separate and the site plan is separate.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be able to require it. A site plan, you have to approve it if it meets all of your regulations, whereas the special permit, you are allowed to take into consideration subjective criteria. The site plan is kind of black or white. It either meets your regs or it doesn't. It must be approved or it must be denied. Whereas the special permit, you have some flexibility. And I'm recommending that you retain that flexibility.
Okay.
Mr. Planner, do we, under the new business, the site plan review, do we have the engineer's reports? Is everything completed at this time to move this forward? Or
Right.
Is it, I know we had discussed it at the beginning of the week that there was, the engineer wasn't completely satisfied or have enough time to review.
Right, the acting town engineer got revised site plans yesterday, so he's only begun to look at them. But since the applicants are here, I would recommend you let them describe their plans to you with no expectation that the commission is going to take any action on that site plan tonight, but certainly I would recommend letting them make their presentation.
Okay, and under those conditions, we can't move forward with the site plan, then I would suggest that we leave the special permit. We leave the special permit process application open.
Right. Thank you.
Got a consensus on that?
I agree.
Okay. Mike? Okay, so That ends the public portion of the agenda. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes, May 24th and June 14th. The motion to...
Make a motion to approve both.
Second.
Motion made and second. Commissioner Fox?
Before we start discussion, I'm sorry, Noreen, I think I found another, maybe a typo, or maybe just in the way the chairman mentioned it. In the paragraph, you,
I'm sorry, Mr. Fox, which minutes?
all right,
The
this is
June 14 or May 24? Okay.
June 14th, it's on page 6. In the middle of the page, the chairman speaks about how long this sign thing was going on, and he made a statement, "We've been working on this for as long as I have been involved in zoning," which goes back to the 70s, and it says here, "preceded me." I would think that would be preceded me. That's it.
Thank you, Mike.
I feel like Myra Cohn now. She should rest in peace.
Okay, with that change, I have a motion, adjust your motion and your second to reflect the change that Mike brought up.
Yes.
Okay. Any other corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item on the agenda is new business, petition 2417.
Petition 24-17, text amendment, section 6.2, temporary sign regulations, TPZ applicant.
I'll turn it over to the planner for an introduction.
This is a suggested amendment to the temporary sign regulations that the staff developed last month. I presented it to the commission under town planner comments at the last meeting. Several commissioners had some suggestions to improve it, and I was directed to put on the agenda as a new business item for discussion tonight. If the chairman likes, I can go through it. It's not that long.
Why don't you go through your memorandum?
Okay. This is the staff's proposed amendment to the existing temporary sign regulations that I presented to TPZ during town planner report at the June 14, 2017 TPZ meeting. Except for continuing to allow temporary signs on the Berlin Turnpike, most of the suggestions in the Chamber of Commerce's letter of May 15 are consistent with things that TPZ has talked about doing. I took a stab at putting their suggestions into an amendment that addresses their needs and would not run afoul of the 2015 U.S. Supreme Court decision about sign regulations in the First Amendment. A, this amendment would allow A-frame signs only, no more cardboard signs on metal holders, within 10 feet of the front door during business hours only. Any sign seen more than 10 feet from the front door is a violation and will result in either a phone call or a notice of violation from the ZEO.
Okay, stop right there. There's a change in this section of the regulation. Originally it was 5 feet from the front door. I don't know if the 10 feet is, gets us to a point where it's beyond what is reasonable.
Yeah, 10 feet's too far. He just changed it?
Yeah, I thought that was what somebody asked for, but I can put it back to 5.
Maybe there's a happy medium. Maybe we go 8 feet. I mean, but 10 feet is definitely too much of a span because you could be off the sidewalk. Could be into the
I don't feel strongly about it. I just thought somebody thought 10 feet was better, but 5 feet?
No, I think the 5 feet's a good number. You go any more than that, you're into public walkways, you're into public access areas, I think, and I don't think that's gonna hurt any of the business owners to go 5 feet.
Okay. Make that change, please. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when as we see something, we should bring it up so we could get this moving.
Right, definitely. Paragraph B, the permit would be approved by TPZ at a regular meeting and be good for 4 months, subject to renewal. It's not in the regulation, but renewals could be done by staff with prior consent from TPZ. In other words, someone with a permit would not have to reappear before TPZ to have it renewed. C, signs must be on private property except in the town center zone and in the B zones, where they could be on the sidewalk, but only after the TPC has determined that they are not less than 25 feet apart, which is new from what I gave you last time, and would not create clutter or get in the way of pedestrians. Since the application for a temporary sign permit must be signed by the building owner, any disputes between tenants over who gets to have the temporary sign would be worked out by the owner. In other words, it won't be an issue for TPZ. If TPZ likes the concept of allowing A-frame temporary signs on the sidewalk in the town center and in B zones, which are town-owned property, I will work out the details with the town manager.
Okay, on this point, working out the details means certificates of insurance that name the town as an additional insured. Because you can't put a sign and have the town responsible for your sign. So you're going to have to insure and make the town, hold the town non-harmless for the sign. If anything happens where someone trips over, then it's basically the tenant or the owner's responsibility. So that's what I think you mean when you say the town work out the details with the manager, right, just so that it's clear to the public. Okay.
All right, paragraph D. Temporary signs would be prohibited in the front yard along the Berlin Turnpike. During the discussion on June 14, 2017, Commissioner Payne pointed out that there may be businesses located in multi-tenant buildings on the Berlin Turnpike who might like to have an A-frame sign on the sidewalk in front of their unit in that building, far removed from the Berlin Turnpike, but in plain sight of shoppers coming and going from other stores in that building. I think this is a good point, and I have modified the draft accordingly. I reduced the banner allowance to 1 square foot per linear foot of building frontage, and not more than for 50 days per year in increments of 25 days, as suggested by Commissioner Payne. During the discussion, Commissioner Claffey expressed a concern over having different requirements in different zones. But that is why there are different zone districts, because different areas of town have different character and different patterns of development. A-frame signs are a very traditional, very common method for merchants to promote their business in a manner and scale that is compatible with certain areas of town, but not necessarily others. For example, the regulations currently allow 50% more wall signage along the Berlin Turnpike as elsewhere in town. Presumably this was due to the high speed of traffic along the Berlin Turnpike. If the high speed is a valid basis for additional wall signage, it would not be inappropriate to use that as a basis for prohibiting temporary signage.
Okay, let's go back up to D. The temporary signs would be prohibited in the front yard along the Berlin Turnpike. If that has to be better explained, because that would open it up where if I was a tenant on the Berlin Turnpike, I could put an A-frame sign not next to the building. I could put it in the parking lot on an island. So you have to, if that's the intent, then it has to say that. But, Commissioner Sarah, do you have a comment on the Berlin Turnpike signage?
I do. As you know, part of the discussion was not to allow these on the Berlin Turnpike because of all the additional signage they have. A lot, and I'm not saying all, but a lot of these stores do already have an advantage with the sign because they are allowed so much more because they are on the Berlin Turnpike. The problem I have in a plaza setting, as Mr. Minor brought up, if you have 3, 4 stores or more in a plaza, everybody's got a sign out there. We're back to that clutter look. We're back to the signs being in the way of people trying to maneuver. I'm not trying to hurt them, but I think that's going against what we were looking at as far as keeping the neat appearance. I understand they want to get something out there, showing what they're selling, advertising their business, but they are already at an advantage with the additional signage that they get for being on the Berlin Turnpike. So I'm not sure what the answer is, but I don't know, especially in a multi-plaza, where you're gonna have 4 or 5 signs on one sidewalk or one, area.
Yeah, how would that be controlled? Would the people that are renting the stores come in for the application, or the owner of the plaza?
Well, it's both. The owner of the plaza would have to sign the application, so it wouldn't even come to you until the owner has signed off on it, and use the same requirement that I suggested for the town center zone, is they can't be closer than 25 feet apart, or some other distance that seems reasonable. And so must be signed by the owner, can't be closer than 25 feet apart, and still has to satisfy you that it won't be clutterish, if there's such a word, and won't be an impediment to pedestrians. You always hold the final card of whether to approve one or not. But I would need to revise the wording a little bit more to include those caveats.
Stanley, you got any comments on that particular issue?
No,
Trying to get a consensus as to where.
You know what the state statute is, so as long as we follow that, I have no issues. I mean, I think as long as it's within the plaza, and I'm thinking about where Chunky Cheese is, you got about, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 stores there. If each one of those put those out, it could look clutterish, but.
Mike?
The same way.
Which way is that?
You can't put all those signs out.
Commissioner Payne?
Yeah, I understand how my commissioners are thinking on this, but with all due respect, if you're driving down the Berlin Turnpike and the plaza that you're speaking about has 5 A-frame signs within 5 feet of their doorways, you won't see them. They will only be seen by people that are walking within their plaza. And that's what I think these people want, is just a small A-frame next to the door, so if it's a restaurant, they could write their special, or somebody else could write that they have a sale, or whatever means they want. So, and like the town planner said, I mean, we'll have final say on it when they bring it into us. So if we feel it's a clutter or something, or some other type of problem, as long as they adhere to the 5 feet from the door, I think that we're not going to see the same clutter. I think that they understand that we're not going to accept signs in the street right away, the town right away, or anywhere else sticking in the landscaping, that we're allowing an A-frame next to the door within 5 feet of the door to help them. And then maybe the banners is a whole nother subject, but as far as the A-frames next to the doorways, I think it's important for the businesses to be able to have that. And after 6 months, if it doesn't work out, we can always change it after that.
Mr. Sarah?
I understand what Commissioner Payne is saying, and, it could possibly work. Question I have, though, if I heard this right, you're saying these signs can't be within 25 feet of each other?
That's what I'm suggesting, right?
Okay. So how's that gonna, and I'm getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but in some businesses, the doors aren't 25 feet apart from each other. So if you have 3 businesses, they each come in for a sign, they're not gonna be 25 feet apart from each other. What do we do with that?
They won't even come to you.
Obviously,
The staff will
second
reject them because they don't meet the minimum requirements.
Yeah, obviously, the first person would be okay, and then the following people would have the problem because they wouldn't be able to meet the 25 feet.
Well, that's what I'm afraid of, is we're gonna open up a can of worms with this.
It's also extremely rare to have 3 doors, public doors, close to each other, or even 2. Sometimes you could have 2 because you could have a space going from the center over to one side and then another door going to the other side. But to have 3 there would be almost impossible. And usually, the size of the space, there's always some distance between there. But that'll be, something that we can keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think, on a trial and error basis, we can try it as long as we can go back and revisit it if there's an issue. I wouldn't have a problem with that, but I have a problem putting it in stone and then we find out it doesn't work and we're stuck with it.
Mr. Sobieski.
I agree with, both Commissioner Payne and Commissioner Sarah. If there's gonna be some instances where you might not have the 25 feet in between. And I'm just concerned with those businesses there. I mean, I don't know if they could split the A-frame or not, I don't know. But I'd like to try it and see how it works out. I'm not closing the door completely to it, I just wanna try it. But I would, and again, I just use that one plaza as an example, because I know the doors are about 25 feet apart.
Another way you can address that is when, let's say there are two businesses less than 25 feet apart, both of whom want to have a temporary sign, you issue the first one for 4 months, but then you choose not to renew that one and let the neighbor get the next 4 months.
But I guess where I'd be a little confused here, maybe you can help me out, is, and the lady said it pretty clearly, that there's certain time frames in the year where the sales peak. So wouldn't that be a disadvantage to that other business? That's all I'm asking.
Oh, sure.
So, I mean, I don't want to really if we're going to do it, I'd like to try to make it fair to everybody. So, I mean, maybe you might want to think about in this, and I don't want to keep adding more to this regulation, but maybe in a certain area where we've got the area, the doors too close to each other, maybe make it 2 months. I don't know. I'm just suggesting. I don't want to isolate one business, so let's assume that business A has their sign out from May to September, we'll say. Then business B wants that their same time frame for their major sales. You see my point?
Yes, but I
But
think
we can't make these regulations specific to every business out there that, well, he needs this specific thing in this one. We'd have a regulation that's 30 pages long.
No,
We're trying to simplify it and saying, this is what the regulation says, and you comply with these provisions of the regulation. Commissioner Camillo, then Commissioner Sarah.
If you have your signs out in front of the store, somebody's walking through and they're texting and they're not paying attention and they walk into the sign and they get hurt. Is there a certificate of insurance on that?
Yeah, that's what would be,
if it's on a sidewalk.
yeah,
in
if
the
it's on
town
the
center.
sidewalk and it's town property, then they would have to provide insurance and name the town as an additional insured. Commissioner Fox.
I thought you had Commissioner Sarah first.
Go ahead.
And this is anything we can regulate, but as I'm sitting here thinking, maybe a suggestion to the business owners, if we go through with this, if you have a neighbor, you're that close, maybe put one business on one side of the sign, one business on the other side of the sign. Now you both have your sign, you both have your permit.
But they wouldn't both be 5 feet from the.
It'd be one sign, one business on one side, one business on the other side of the A-frame.
Within 5 feet of one door or the other.
Yeah, why not?
Right?
Stole my thunder.
Mr. Fox, you have any other
Yeah,
comments?
I had the same idea, because I really don't like the idea of first come, first serve in this. Especially where you have, in the center, you've got 2 stories of stores, a couple of them anyway. And, they would be at a loss. But I like the idea of sharing an A-frame. And I have now, in the center, who owns the sidewalks? I mean,
Town of Newington.
right up to the storefront?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why we want to protect the town so that they are not liable for any problems or accidents with the signage.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, that's item D. Let's look at the next section of that. I reduced the banner allowance to 1 square foot per linear foot of building frontage and not more than 50 days per year in increments of 25 days. Let's talk about the banners, Mr. Planner, what you think we should allow as far as banners. Because most of the banners you're gonna find are gonna be on the big box stores or on the, we know that we've had discussions with Stu Leonard to see what their requirements are for a banner. We're trying to accommodate them, but we want to accommodate all the rest of the businesses too.
Right. Yeah, I discussed this a lot with the CEO because he's the one who's in the trenches on this. There aren't really a lot of merchants that have taken advantage of our banner regulation, probably because up until now they've been able to have temporary signs instead. These cardboard signs that they stick in the ground up in front. So if temporary signs are no longer allowed on the Berlin Turnpike, more merchants will probably be using a banner. And the banner that Stu Leonard's brings out every Christmas is huge, and it wouldn't be appropriate to allow that size of a banner for everybody. But 1 square foot of banner per linear foot of building, that seems like a reasonable starting point at least. And let's see how it works. If it turns out Mike's issuing permits for banners that make this town look like we're one big gift wrap box, then we could tweak the regulation after we find out that we were too generous, or vice versa. I would say let's give it a shot and see what happens.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
They would have to come in front of us for the banner too, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
you could almost say that they make a presentation to us and that the banner can't be over 150 square feet, and then we look at each individual banner and in relationship to their particular space and judge it on a per case basis.
So 1 square foot per linear feet of building frontage not to exceed 100 square feet?
I was thinking just that the banner can't exceed 150 square feet and shouldn't be larger than their existing space, maybe, their frontage. In other words, a little bit more flexibility. We take out 1 square foot for each linear front foot space. They're gonna be in front of us, so we'll be able to tell whether or not it's gonna look too big or not look too big. No?
Right, yes, yes.
Talking about a
but
sign 150 feet long.
A banner, well, no, a banner.
A banner?
I'm trying to prevent something that's too big. The banner that Stu has is 150 square feet, not 150 feet long. It's 150 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
So for them, though, it doesn't look that bad because they have a huge building there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put that 150 square feet on a smaller storefront, then it's going to look large. So if they're going to come in front of us, should we analyze each one as it comes, and it's just pending their size of their space, it can't exceed 150 square feet?
Well, not if you want to do it as a permitted use, and which I think you want to. You want people to know that this is what they're allowed as long as they come before you and show it to you and you confirm that it meets your regulations. I think a combination of the two, that we allow no more than 1 square foot of banner per linear foot of building frontage, but not to exceed some number like 100 square feet.
So not to exceed the 150 square feet, the size that Stu's has.
Right.
Right now.
Or not even 150, maybe just 100, not to exceed 100 square feet.
Well, then you're going to make them reduce their space, their sign?
They're, in my opinion, they're grandfathered.
We're not going to do the grandfather. We had this argument last time.
I know, and I'm going to say it every time.
No one's grandfathered. Okay? I disagree with you on that. Nobody's grandfathered.
You got to think about what 150 square feet is, or 100 square feet. You're not talking about a sign that's 10 by 10 or 20 by 5. I mean, these are huge signs. Banners. They're still huge.
Attached to the front of the building.
Yeah. It's, and I could see on a Walmart or a Stu Leonard's or Chop Pricer, or the supermarket, or all these. Yeah, I could see a larger size sign, but
not the small ones. Well, how about if I come back to you next month with I'll take a kind of a random section of the Berlin Turnpike and measure how wide all those buildings are, and then show you how big a banner they could have if we allowed 1 square foot of banner per linear foot of building frontage.
Because that's basically what we're allowing, well, it's, that's what we allow for signage in the rest of the town, as far as a standard, just 1 square foot for every linear, 1 square foot for every linear foot.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
It's one square,
So-
1 square foot for every linear foot. Oh, but on the Berlin Turnpike, we allow 2 square feet for every linear foot.
Right.
They get double the signage than the rest of the town.
So if a particular business had 100 linear feet of their business, not, we want to make careful, because on a multi-tenant building, you don't want to measure the entire building, you want to measure their portion of the building.
Okay,
Okay, so let's say their portion of their building was 100 linear frontage feet. That means they would get 100 square feet of signage,
a banner.
of banner, okay, of banner.
Right.
So that means they would have a 5-foot by 20-foot banner for up to 25 days at a time, twice a year.
Right.
Okay.
Why don't you go back and play with this a little more and come back with us so we have an understanding of what we're allowing?
Yeah, I'll give you some
I'm not
illustrations.
against letting the businesses have banners specifically for these amount of days. I mean, but we need to have them, and any temporary sign has to come to the commission.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that takes care of
Mr. Chairman,
that item. What
just
else?
another question. What if a business wanted, they had the 50 days, let's say they wanted to do 5 10-day periods. Could they do that?
That's a,
Just
excellent-
curious.
That's a good question. That's technically, as I recall, the existing temporary sign regulation, which is now frozen, although the book says increments of a certain amount of time. In reality, I think the staff has been allowing them to do them in little chunks just because that's what people really want. So if the commission thinks that maybe we should be a little more, allow some more flexibility and maybe increments of 7 days, but not to exceed 50. We can certainly talk about that during the public hearing. And that's the kind of input we can get from the public during the public hearing to tweak it to meet their actual, what they see as their needs are.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll come back next month and I'll bring or next meeting, and I'll bring some visuals to show what it would look like if this regulation were adopted.
Are we doing the entire sign section or just the temporary signs? Because I thought we were going to address the entire sign section.
Well, since it's the temporary sign regulation, that's the one of most immediate concern to most people. I just stayed focused on the temporary sign.
If we have any concerns with anything else that we want to plug something in, can we bring it to your attention?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
okay, any other comments or questions from the commissioners? Mr. Planner, what is the,
Okay, so like I said, I'll bring this back to you. I'll leave it on the agenda under new business, and we'll discuss it some more at the next meeting. And I'll give you some graphics to demonstrate, to show how big a banner could be.
do you think at the next meeting we could put this on the agenda for a public hearing? After we refine this? I know it has to go to CROG, which is,
Right,
which is 30 days, so trying to figure out the time period so we give the public and the
Right.
business people an idea of how long it's gonna take us to come to a conclusion.
Well, your next meeting is July 12th, and then if I send it to CROG the very next day, your August meeting is the 9th, so it would still have to, it would be, then we'd have to allow 5 weeks. So if you like what I bring back to you at the next meeting on the 12th, the earliest the public hearing on that would be the second meeting in August, August 23rd.
It's not bad.
But there's no way that we could make the August 9th meeting.
No.
We're for the public's information, we're restricted by state statutes as far as time periods and what we have to do. We have to send it to CROG. We have certain things and certain time reframes and restrictions on us that we can't just say, okay, let's do it tonight, boom, 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 and be done. I mean, sometimes I'd love to do that, but we're restricted by the state statutes.
Well, I think the regulation, as we've discussed it tonight, if I sent this to CROG as it was presented to you, and then you have a public hearing and you make changes, changes to it, as long as they're not substantial, substantive changes, I don't think you've violated the intent or the letter of the law, which says you have to send a copy of the reg to CROG at least 30 days before. Yeah, I think making changes on the fly to things like increments of 25 days, I don't think that CROG would feel that you pulled a bait and switch on them, or any of the surrounding towns would feel that you didn't give them a meaningful opportunity to comment on the draft. So if this is pretty close to what
you'd see what we just went over and what we want you to tweak and come back and give us some more information on. But I don't want to start holding this up another meeting and leave it on as old business. Then we have to close it and move it to from new business to old business. And
how about this? How about
I'll
make the changes that I thought I heard tonight. I'll talk to you about it during the week.
Yeah.
And if you think it's close to what you think the commission is going to want to see, I'll send it to CROG, and then we can have the hearing on it at your
August 9th. No.
Yeah, if he sends it this week to CROG, we could have it on our first meeting of August.
Yes, August 9th, yes. Should we do that?
Yeah.
Yes.
What's your feeling? Yeah, that's the consensus of the commission.
I think that's what Vernon did with theirs. I think they submitted it and then they made some other tweaks to CROG.
Yeah, we could always tweak it as long as
I mean, as long as there's no substantial changes in the body.
Yeah, we're not changing the intent of what we sent to CROG.
I say go for it.
Okay, we got a consensus, so why don't we do that?
Okay.
Okay?
Just a comment that was just made to me. Some of the public may not know what CROG stands for, so if the planner just wanted to explain what that is.
Yeah, CROG is the abbreviated name for the Capital Region Council of Governments. They are what used to be called the Regional Planning Agency for Newington and Hartford and all the towns in the Hartford area. And by law, anytime a town wants to change its zoning regulations, it has to send a copy of the proposed change to the local regional planning agency, now called Council of Government, at least 30 days before the public hearing, so that the Council of Government's staff can review it and let the surrounding towns know about it well in advance of the public hearing.
Okay. All righty. I think that takes care of the sign regulation to this point. Why don't we go into the next application?
Petition 22-17, site plan approval for senior assisted living at 751 Russell Road, HDC 1 LLC, owner applicant John Kozlowski, CME Associates Incorporated, 33 Wilbur Crossway, Mansfield, Connecticut. Contact.
Good evening. For the record, Pete Parent, professional engineer with CME Associates in Mansfield, Connecticut.
Could you pull the mic closer a little bit? It's kind of hard to hear you. Thank you.
Mr. Minor, would you mind bringing up the PDF that I provided?
I don't think your mic is on.
Oh.
I'm not hearing.
It's on.
It is?
Got to come
Okay.
closer.
Got to get within a couple of inches of the.
So for the record, Pete Parent, professional engineer with CME Associates in Mansfield, Connecticut. If the file with today's date at the top.
This one?
The one below that,
This one.
yes. You can bring up slide 4, please. So as we discussed, the project is at the corner of Russell Road and East Cedar Street. As you know, there have been multiple projects previously proposed here, and this is keeping in with the last proposal for a senior assisted housing. Based on the number of units, would be required to have about a 7-acre lot. The existing lot is just shy of 9 acres. And based on parking calculations, we're providing at half a space per unit, we'd be required to have 106 spaces. So we are providing 106 resident spaces. They're anticipating to have 35 employees, so we're providing enough space for each employee, and then an additional 13 visitor spaces for a total of 154 spaces. And if you'd like to go to slide 6. And as you can see, 32 of those spaces are actually located in a garage area below the independent living building, with the remainder being provided on the west side and east side of the site. The town's landscaping requirements require a minimum of 10% internal landscaping to a parking area. The total paved area on the site is about 128,000 square feet. So we'd be required to have 12,800 square feet of internal landscaping. With just the large island in the eastern parking, the 2 larger islands in the western parking, and the island immediately in front of the assisted living building, we're over 13,000 square feet. So we far exceed the requirement for internal landscaping. The overall landscaping requirement is for 10% of the lot area. So we'd be just shy of an acre of required landscaping for the entire lot, and we are at just over 3.5 acres, mostly due to the large wetland area in the northwest corner that is protected by previous development based on the previous project approval. From a circulation standpoint, the turn into the site from East Reader Street will be restricted to right turn in and right turn out only, with in and out on Russell Road. In response to Mr. Jensen's concerns, the entrance on Russell Road is provided with 2 stop bars. One will be to stop traffic exiting the site prior to its intersection with the Jensen Machine driveway. That stop sign will also be provided with a sign that indicates that traffic entering from the left does not stop. So anybody exiting the site onto Russell Road will understand that the Jensen Machine traffic has the right of way.
Is the entrance on East Cedar Street, the in and out, is that at a controlled intersection? Is there a stop? Is there a traffic light there, or is there proposed a traffic light? I know on the other Amara piece that there was. I think you got to clarify that up front for us.
There is not a traffic light proposed for the East Cedar Street. It's purely a right turn in, right turn out only intersection. Yeah.
So you anticipate most of your traffic coming and going on Russell Road, or?
For the record, Michael
Yeah.
Frisbee, the owner. Just to address the issue, there was not a controlled traffic signal proposed at that former application. The number of trips based on the traffic study for that didn't warrant a light. It was suggested by the board that when DOT looks at the overall project, that they may consider putting some sort of a controlled light that would be tripped by a car at the intersection, as opposed to
Did that ever come to any conclusion, or just died because?
To the best of my knowledge, they never proposed that and went forward after it was approved.
So it never went forward
never
to
went
them,
forward
so
with
you
the
never
DOT.
got.
So this would have to go. This would have to go before them to look at the entire access point. So.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. Mr. Planner, if you would mind switching to slide 7, please. This is the site grading plan. So as you can see, we've kept the parking areas relatively level, and in order to do that, we need a pretty substantial retaining wall on the southeast corner. But that will also be where the signage for the facility would be located, and potentially a welcome to Newington sign as was previously proposed. And again, in regards to Mr. Jensen's comments, the grading adjacent to the Jensen Machine Shop building at the corner of the building will maintain the existing elevation, but it currently slopes up rapidly to meet that at-grade entrance that they have, that doorway on the side. So we're proposing to lower that grade about a foot, which will require 2 steps in order to make up that difference and allow for a little bit more convenient backing of tractor-trailer trucks in that area so that they can exit onto Russell Road. And as Mr. Frisbee is saying, we're certainly willing to continue to work with both Mr. Jensen and Connecticut DOT, as this is a state road that will require their approval as well of any modifications to those driveways. So if you'd mind switching to slide 8, please.
The other question he had was how the proposal affected his parking.
There should be no adverse effects to his parking. The trucks will be able to pull in as they do now. The only difference will be that they'll be able to back up and turn around, as currently is my understanding that they have to back down the driveway or back in so that they can pull out of the driveway.
Excuse me, my cord came out.
You know where it goes?
Nah, I never. No, it's always an adventure looking for where it goes.
I think it's on the side. Where
We need to get a 10-year-old in here.
Yeah. No, I have the same problem every time.
It looks like it.
Yeah, I think they move it on me every time.
Does anyone computer literate know where the plug is?
Better eyes than I.
Ooh, what a-
No, it's about to run out too.
Should be the jack for, there should be a,
Well, it should be something round to start with, and
yeah.
I'm not seeing anything here that's round except for the microphone and something else. Well, you know what? Let's just hurry up. I just wasted like 30 minutes or 3 minutes of battery life.
So from a drainage perspective, we basically divided the site into 2 halves. On the western half, we'll be collecting with a series of catch basins and manholes, discharging through a hydrodynamic separator into an underground detention system. On a similar system on the eastern side, we'll also be collecting with a series of catch basins and manholes, discharging through a hydrodynamic separator into an underground detention system. In the center of the property, there was a little bit more of an opportunity. The area between the 2 buildings where the memory care garden and some sidewalk is located will discharge into a rain garden in that area. All of the treated and detained water will then discharge into a common system and tie into the Connecticut DOT drainage system at the southeast corner of the site at a catch basin in East Cedar Street, where there's an existing 30-inch main line that runs through.
Okay.
If you could switch to slide 10, please. This is a site landscaping plan. We provided, trees throughout the site to provide some shade on the parking area, and then more heavy landscaping adjacent to the building to kind of cut the scale of the buildings down a little bit, and also, a considerable amount of landscaping along the north border there to provide some screening between the residents and the Jensen Machine Shop. And then also a considerable amount of landscaping on the southeast corner where the retaining wall is and the signs are proposed. Next slide, please. So the proposed lighting plan, standard parking lot lighting throughout, typical values of between 4 and 5 foot candles within the site, maximum, 0 at the property line, a little bit of light spill onto the public way, but as you know, it's already a lighted road. And then if you switch to slide 16, please. Using ENS control measures, basically silt fence, catch basin inserts, stockpile areas in secured areas, typical measures to keep the site from discharging sediments and dirty water onto the DOT right away. And if you could switch to slide 18, please. This was something that Mr. DeMaria had recommended. He provided me with the turning template for the town's ladder truck. And this plan just demonstrates that the ladder truck could potentially reach 3 sides of each building without conflict. And that is my presentation from a civil perspective. If anybody has questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Mr. Payne.
What's the largest size truck that will be entering for servicing the 2 buildings?
Typically, a 24-foot straight truck is what from Cisco or move-ins, move-outs would be pretty much the maximum size.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Sarah? Yep. Commissioner Sobieski?
Couple questions. First of all, you have a right-in, right-out on Connecticut 175. How are you going to prevent traffic from coming up the top of the hill and trying to make a turn into there? That's a pretty heavily traveled road at 28,000 vehicles per day. I believe when Amaro was here, and the original plan, there was a DOT permit to install a traffic signal with turning lanes up there, which I believe is part of the Amaro decision that we had suggested that happens. We all know that that's a pretty, well, it's gone now. We all know it's a heavily traveled road, and my concern is people just stopping eastbound on 175 trying to cut across 2 lanes of traffic. So I'd like to know how you intend to stop that, or at least prohibit it in some way. The other issue I have is, and I don't know if you've been up there recently or not, but you'll see that coming down off the ramp onto 15 southbound to 175, they put a teardrop island with a continuous right turn to alleviate the backup. You're going to have a short weaving area between where the acceleration comes up and the deceleration coming over to trying to get into your driveway. And my third question is with the Jensen machine issue.
I tried to.
That was brought up that they had said that their trucks have to back down. Now, I don't know, I can't remember actually what happened if they were going to try to put another driveway up on the north end of the property so that the tractor trailers could use that. Backing down out of that area is a very dangerous issue. And as you're backing down, if somebody doesn't stop or the tractor trailer doesn't see it, you have a potential for accidents. So those are my 3 concerned areas here. I'm just concerned with the safety of the issue. The project I like. I think it's a great project. I just want to make sure the safety is there. I want to know how you're going to address that.
So to your first question, the right turn, right out will have a raised island in between, and hard radiuses to prevent anyone from being able to make that left-hand turn into the site. It'll also be signed that there's no left turn available, but you know how signs work. So that's why we have the raised island. And then the distance between Russell Road intersection and the driveway is over 700 feet. Granted, that is a short distance to accelerate and decelerate, but if somebody's coming from Russell Road and planning to turn into the site, they won't be traveling, they won't be intending to reach peak speed.
It's the traffic coming down, it's heading westbound, that's not going to be going to your facility that I'm concerned with. So somebody coming from Weathersfield, and that they're going to be forced to be a left-hand lane because the teardrop island will take them up force everything up into the turnpike. Now, I'm in this lane here and I decide I want to go into your facility, I've got to cross a full lane of traffic with people coming down and accelerating. That's my concern here.
I see. I would have to look at that further.
Isn't this the same situation we were having, Stanley, when we looked at the Amara piece, that it's basically up to the Department of Transportation to determine whether they want a controlled intersection there or how they want it designed, the in and out onto Cedar Street?
I think what we did on that one, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Chairman, was that we added that into the Amara design. I'm only concerned here is I want to make sure the safety is there with the traffic volumes, with the the way the traffic volumes are and stuff. That's my concern. I just want to see how they're going to address it. Hard Islands may or may not work up there, as you know and I know, because people don't pay attention to signs.
Mr. Sarah.
Just a couple of things. One, on the point you were just discussing with the Amara with the traffic signal. We as a commission at the time wanted the traffic signal there. We asked the town planner when that got sent to DOT to send a letter stating that we were looking for a sign there, if I remember correctly. Or when whatever went to DOT, we sent something with that we wanted to see a sign there, but it was ultimately up to them. And that's what I remember happening. The next question I have is, with all the parking, with everything going on there, and being an assisted living facility and a age-in-place facility, are you going to be running shuttle buses taking residents different places? If so, how many? Where are they going to be parking? What are you looking at as far as that? Because that's going to add more traffic. That's where you're going to be parking them on the lot. That's going to take away from some of your parking for your residents, for your visitors. So that's another question. And then the other question I have is concern that we had last time, again, with Jensen Machine, with that driveway. I understand you're going to have traffic signals there, you're going to have speed bumps there. I'm still concerned with those trucks coming out of there, especially with a lot of elderly pulling in and out of there. They don't pay attention. They pull right out. Is there any possibility, as Mr. Jensen suggested, moving that driveway to the north side of his property? Now that takes that whole thing out of play.
So I'll address the Jensen Machine, and then I'll switch it over to George here to address the transport. We did look briefly at moving the driveway to the north side. It would require acquiring property from the neighboring Humane Society, and the driveway doesn't get substantially less steep. You'd be going from having what they have now, about 14 to 15% driveway, to having a 12 to 13% driveway.
Well, my concern with that is having traffic from the facility and from Jensen coming in and out of there simultaneously. Right. I realize it only happens with deliveries. I understand that. But if something's going to happen, that's when it's going to happen.
Absolutely. And that's why we provided the turnaround, so that the tractor-trailer trucks could drive in, turn around, and drive out, so they're not backing blind down the road.
One of the requirements of assisted living is scheduled transportation. It's something that needs to be in place as a part of program, but the word scheduled is critical to that part of the activity. There will be a 19 or 21 passenger bus that will be provided by the facility, and but I think that what's key to understand is that activities with the bus, such as trips to medical buildings and other kinds of social events, will indeed be scheduled, and more often than not will be off-peak. So I respect the concern, but it's a concern in terms of the day-to-day operation of the community as well.
And I understand that, and that's fine. One of the things, as you said here through our sign regulations, was where's it going to be parked afterwards? Because we do not want it being parked out front on the side of the road where it's being used as a billboard also. So that was my concern with parking also.
One of the questions that was raised in, I think one of the in the initial comments of Mr. Minor was where's the loading area, where is the loading dock, and there are parking spaces in that area that are specifically designated for employees. In the evening, this is a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week business, and in the off-peak hours, in the evening hours, the bus will be parked in the employee area, which is near the back of the building, in the northeast corner of the building.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We don't allow, under site plan review, back and forth from the public, Mr. Jensen, but any other questions?
Well, at the pleasure of the board, we're still awaiting some comments based on our revised site plans. So if we could respectfully ask to be pushed to the next meeting, we could get closer to having final comments addressed. We'll continue to work with Mr. Jensen and try to address his comments as well. If there's anything that comes up in the meantime, we're working with Mr. Minor to try to get us to a point where the next meeting we should be able to satisfy all those.
Okay, so we will leave the site plan approval for this application continue it under new business. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is old business petition 1417. Mr. Payne.
Petition 14-17, zoning text amendment to revise waiver provisions, various sections, Town Planning and Zoning Commission applicant.
Okay, this was the item that was presented at a public hearing at the last meeting. I went over the regulation, and it's now ready for the commission's action, and there's a draft motion for your use that I believe is a staple to the other draft motions for approval.
And you read the draft motion, please.
Petition 14-17, zoning text amendment to revise waiver provision, various sections, Town Planning and Zoning Commission applicant. I move to approve, effective upon publication, petition 14-17, zoning text amendment to revise waiver provisions, various sections, Town Planning and Zoning Commission applicant. Findings: 1, this amendment has been reviewed by CROG and found to contain no apparent conflict with regional plans and policies or the concerns of neighboring towns. 2, Newington's Plan of Conservation and Development does not mention this aspect of the zoning regulations. I recommend finding that it is not inconsistent with the POCD. 3, the reason for this amendment is to bring the zoning regulations into compliance with Connecticut state law.
Any questions, any concerns, any additions, comments?
Can we get a second?
I make second.
Motion made and second. Everyone satisfied? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's old business. We have other items that we moved, but
Move the other two.
yeah, we're moving petition 0917. Commissioner Payne, is there a motion?
Petition 0917, text amendment and map amendment, new section 3.25, open space zone, townwide Newington Open Space Committee, applicant contact. I move to approve, effective upon publication, petition 09-17, text amendment and map amendment, new section 3.25, open space zone, townwide Newington Open Space Committee, applicant contact. Findings: 1, This amendment has been reviewed by CROG and found no apparent conflict with the regional plans and policies or the concerns of the neighboring town. The review also noted that this amendment offers additional protections to ensure they remain as open space and thus is in keeping with the regional goal to support protection of more open space in the capital region. 2, the amendment is consistent with the Newington's plan of conservation and development as it furthers the following natural resources general goal. Ensure that environmental significant areas are preserved in their natural conditions and provide limited passive recreation and or educational uses such as hiking, non-motorized biking, cross-country skiing, fishing, picnicking, and nature interpretation, page 16. 3, the reason for this amendment is to preserve open space in the town of Newington.
Second.
Motion made second. There was changes to the to this, I believe, that Mr. Payne brought up. You want to make that part of the motion?
Yes, good point.
I believe it was managed.
Just eliminating the managed under 3.25.1.5. It would say land specifically designated as dedicated community open space on town of Newington's approved town plan of conservation and development. I'm taking out the word as designated as managed.
So that would be a condition. I would recommend it be a condition number 1 that section 3.25.15 be amended to delete the phrase managed or the words managed or. Okay. Any questions or comments on that? We got a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes. The next item that we moved forward tonight was the petition 2017, a moratorium on temporary sign permit application, section 6.2.1F. Temporary sign permits, town plan and zoning commission applicant. I thought the meeting went very well. I thought the public hearing went very well. I believe that the business community and the Chamber of Commerce are satisfied with our decision to proceed with the 6-month moratorium, with the caveat that we would work diligently to try moving this forward within the next couple of meetings. And we've made progress tonight by putting going for a public hearing at our August 9th meeting. So we're proceeding, and I think that we don't really need the 6 months, but for prudency for the commission and the ability not to have to come back for another public hearing for the moratorium, that we'll try wrapping this up within the next couple of months. Mr. Planner, any comments?
No. So you want to leave it with the expiration of December 31st?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Payne, I believe there's a motion. I would put in the motion the expiration date of the moratorium, which is December what, 31st?
Yeah, that could be finding number 4.
Okay. Petition 20-17. I move to approve effective upon publication petition 20-17, moratorium on temporary sign permit applications, section 6.21F, temporary sign permits, town planning and zoning commission applicant. Findings. 1. The amendment has been reviewed by CROG and found no apparent conflict with the regional plans and policies or the concerns of neighboring towns. 2, the plan of conservation and development does not address the issue of temporary signage. This moratorium is therefore not inconsistent with the POCD. 3, the reason for this amendment is to prevent the issuing of new permits for temporary signs while the TPZ is in the process of revising the current temporary sign regulation. And finding number 4, the expiration date of this moratorium will be December 31st, 2017.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any comments or questions or concerns by the commission on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote of the commission. Next item on the agenda is petitions for public hearing scheduling. I see that on the agenda it says none, but Mr. Planner, is there anything that we should know about?
Nope.
Okay, next item is town planner report.
Okay, there are two items in my report. I'll do the second one first. Cinco de Mayo activity at Plaza Azteca. As requested by the commission, I have gotten some written comments from the chief of police and from the fire marshal as to last May's Cinco de Mayo event. Both comments were rather negative, and what I will do is I will send those comments to the owners of Plaza Azteca now, so that they're aware of them. And I will probably send them with a cover letter indicating that this will be a strong factor in the commission's consideration of any future Cinco de Mayo request from Plaza Azteca. Okay, the other item in the report is the zoning enforcement ticket idea. And I'll just read my comments. It's just 3 quick paragraphs. Attached is Town Attorney Ben Ancona's zoning ticket revision to the ordinance that gives the ZEO the authority to issue citations, parentheses, fines, to zoning violators. This was discussed at the last TPZ meeting. My only concern is that the zoning ticket will have rather limited application, since by law the citation, parentheses, ticket, must be delivered to the property owner. In most cases, the manager on duty is not the property owner, so the clock doesn't start ticking, i.e. the fines don't start accruing, if the zoning ticket is handed to the manager. A zoning ticket could be useful, however, when dealing with a homeowner who is conducting an illegal business or has excess unregistered vehicles. And I discussed this with Attorney Ancona. We exchanged some emails, and I used the example of Starbucks. If the ZEO were to notice that there's a zoning violation at Starbucks, they've got illegal temporary signs out in front. If Mike went in and issued the ticket to the manager on duty, it wouldn't start the appeals process, which we have to allow, it's people's rights, nor would the fine process start ticking. Mike still has to send a citation or a notice of violation to the owner of the property, wherever that person might be. So as Mike's driving around town and he sees what he is pretty sure is a zoning violation, he can always go in fact, you've encouraged him to in the past, he can always go in and tell the manager that there's something going on here that's against the rules, please fix it. And that's great, and he should do that. But he can't, well, he couldn't hand the manager the ticket because driving around town, he doesn't know who the owner of the property is. He's got to come back to the office anyway to do some research to see who the owner is, because the owner's name needs to be in the citation. So we could do this. It certainly doesn't hurt anything, but I don't think it would speed up compliance or enforcement of the zoning regulations.
Commissioner Sarah, when you did research on this, that other towns are using this system, how are they doing it? If it's more cumbersome than the current system, why are they using it?
I will reach out to the person that I got the information from, but my understanding, and again, I could be wrong, but my understanding on this was that ticket or that citation goes to the manager or the owner of that store, not the building property, because that's the person that's in violation, not the property owner. The store owner, store manager, whatever, is the one leasing the space, is the one responsible for the space. So the violation goes to them, not to the owner of the property.
It's similar to I borrow Dominic's car and I get caught speeding. Well, Dominic doesn't get the speeding ticket. I get the speeding ticket as the driver of the car.
Exactly.
They don't go back and say, well, who owns the car? Because he's responsible for letting you use the car. It's the same situation.
Well,
I don't know. I've read the emails back and forth between the planner and the attorney, and I'm reading it differently than the way you're interpreting it.
Well, but your analogy unfortunately doesn't hold up, because although the manager of the store is the person who's actually committing the crime, it's the property owner that we always have to go after. We can only go after the property owner, even though the property owner lives in South Carolina. It's a very cumbersome process. But that's the way the law is set up. The law says the citation has to be sent to the owner of the property.
Sure, it's not. He has to be aware there was
Nope.
a citation given.
It has to be
his tenant.
served to the owner.
Commissioner Payne.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I respectfully disagree on a couple of things here, and instead of getting into an argument back and forth on, you know, what it is, could we have the town attorney here at our next meeting so that we could get this resolved and move this forward if it's going to save time for the zoning enforcement officer?
Sure, I can tell the town attorney you'd like him to come to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Would you do some research with the towns that you've
Yep.
been in contact with and see what they're doing, if they're issuing a ticket and coming back and then issuing another ticket to, I don't know, it just makes sense to me that if the violator should get the ticket. It's just like a ticket in a car. It's basically the same as a ticket for a car or for a violation
The
of a
violator
motor
is leas-
vehicle violation.
The violator is leasing the building. He's responsible for that building. Landlord's normally responsible for the outside of the buildings, you know, things like that. Anything that happens within the business is the business owner's responsibility.
Mr. Camillo.
I had a piece of property in West Hartford, and the tenants left a bunch of debris, and they were there. The health department came out, the county health gave me the ticket, not the business, not the tenants.
From what I understand, the town attorney is saying that you could give it to the business owner or the manager there. You could give it to the business owner and the property owner, or you could just give it to the property owner. So I think when you get the property owner involved, that means that the business owner hasn't complied, and so that's when you start putting more pressure on the property owner. But I think for most circumstances, I think when a business gets a ticket, that 90% of the time, they're gonna comply and take care of it because it's a ticket on their business.
Commissioner Fox.
I kind of agree with Commissioner Payne, but this brings back to memory the old Environmental Quality Commission, when we were getting quorums, which wasn't too often. But we were looking to create an ordinance, anti-litter ordinance.
Yeah.
And we were talking to people, and we ran into the same problem. Well, it's not my place. It's not my property. So you would have to go after the owner. I disagree. I agree with you, but that's what we used to get. And if you do give it to the owner, which is something I really don't know why they ask you to do. I mean, the business owner would. To give it to the owner, he's going to get a little upset at his tenant. And the tenant may not be a tenant for much longer if he keeps getting reports like that.
But it doesn't satisfy us as far as why we're putting in the ticketing system. The ticketing system is supposed to simplify the EEO's ability to be able to get people to comply. We're not looking to fine people just to get the money. We're looking for them to comply. And I don't know, I see it differently.
I would say probably most zoning violations are done innocently. The person didn't know the rule was they could only have one unregistered vehicle or something. So most of the time, Mike gets compliance by just telling the person that there's a regulation that you may not be aware of, but you can't have this. And most of the time, the person complies. It's those hard cases. It's those guys that want to be difficult that, unfortunately, we need to write the regulation for. It's the person who knows full well that he's breaking the rules and is going to play every game in the book to delay the day of retribution that the regulation needs to be written for. And that day of retribution never comes if the citation isn't served in accordance with the law. So again, it's call it 5% or 10% of the violators, but those are the ones that keep coming before you in Mike's monthly zoning enforcement officer reports.
My understanding is that this can be used either way, so we can write a ticket up for the business owner if they're doing something wrong. If they don't cooperate, then you can do another one to the business owner and the property owner at the same time. But, so there's a lot of flexibility, I think, on this, the way it's written up. But we'll know more, next meeting.
Right.
Okay, we've made a commitment to ourselves that we want some type of enhanced enforcement to go along with the sign regulation, because let's face it, that's where most of the violations are. I think Bobby did research and found that 60-something% of the complaints were for signage. So I think we were looking for this ticketing system to be in conjunction with the sign regulations. So I'd like to get it moved to a point where we know what we're doing so that we can move it forward at the same time we move the sign thing. Okay, so get them in here. Let's get it to a point where we can make a decision.
Okay.
Got anything else?
There was, oh no, that's it. Okay, oh, I did give you copies of the fire chief and the fire marshal's reports. Okay, that's all I have.
Communications and reports. Got the usual CROG communications. Mr. Planner, any other communications?
No, not tonight.
Okay, public participation. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any issue? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, sir.
Tim Lineberry, 22 Butternut Lane. I was landscaping one day. I have a neighbor on each side of the house.
Yep. We're familiar with.
Where are the property lines?
Yeah. We're familiar with, you sent me some communication, and we did some research into, into the,
Excuse me, he can't hear you.
we got some information. You had sent us an email requesting that the zoning board allow you to come in to speak about the property lines. I turned it over to the town planner for some information, to get us some information, and I'll let the town planner explain what we did. You might quickly explain to the rest of the commissioners what your problem is, that you own a house, it's a zero lot line development, and
No, it's a normal house in a normal subdivision.
well, those property lines are right on the corner. Well, from the plans that you sent me, they were zero lot lines. I'd take another look at it. I believe that Butternut, what's your address? No, well, we want to answer your question. Okay.
You don't want to know.
Just for the commissioners, he's called, he has a problem with encroachment, what he believes is encroachment on his side yard property line with a above-ground pool. So he sent this long letter and explanation asking, he went to the assessors, and I sent it to the planner and says, this has really nothing to do with zoning. It's basically a civil matter where he should be talking to a land surveyor, number one, and a real estate attorney, number two, to determine whether this guy is, and if he determines that the guy is encroaching on his side yard, then he could bring it to the zoning enforcement officer. Am I correct?
Well,
Or
yeah,
to the building department.
and that's what I started to say to Mr. Lineberry, but then he wrote back and said that's not the issue that he has. His issue is something different involving the property line, but I didn't understand what it was.
I think maybe you should just give him like maybe BGI's phone number. He did most of the area in the town, and if he hires a surveyor, then I think that's his first step to see if they're encroaching or not. No matter what his concern is, he's got to determine where the property line is.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry that he got upset and left. I was just trying to explain to the commission. Do you have any idea what he was here for? Okay, so I was trying to set the record as to what I was privy to as the chairman with these communications, which I turned over to the town planner to help say what's in town planner determined the same thing that I did. It was basically a civil matter. I don't know what he wanted us to do, but it is what it is. Okay, any other public participation? Remarks by commissioners? Any remarks, Commissioner Payne?
Yeah. I have, Ashley's been putting out signs for 3 weekends in a row. Have they been informed that they're not supposed to do that?
I'll find out.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure they know, but I'll find out whether they've actually been told personally that they're not supposed to.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
The other thing too is 8-24 came up at last night's town council meeting, and I would recommend that they send that to us immediately.
Well, but they have to.
Yeah.
They have to send it
Okay,
to
well,
us.
They had a couple questions.
The questions they had was, because it's conceptual plans, if they sent it to us now, when the plans got refined after the referendum, the final plans, would it have to come back to us again? Well, my contention is that we don't regulate the town to do site plan review on this project. So I think there's a misunderstanding at the council level that they think that the zoning board is going to do, look at the parking, the landscaping, and all of these different factors. I think that the 824 review is more of a conceptual of does it fit the plan? Does it fit the plan of development? Those type of issues, not basically site plan review issues.
Well, I agree that the TPC 8-24 report is of a conceptual nature, but I think you need to have enough information on what you understand the project to be able to then have an intelligent opinion as to whether it's consistent with your plan or not. And I have no idea, because I haven't been asked to review it or to advise them on that, whether the project is sufficiently detailed.
It is.
To be frank, I thought that it was. I was expecting it to come before you, so I was surprised when I heard that there was some discussion over whether it was in the sufficiently developed form to come before you.
I think their questions should be answered by this board. So their first question was, do we need full plans? No, we don't need full plans.
Right.
This conceptual plans that they have is sufficient.
Correct.
And then the second question, would they have to come back to us later when the full plans are drafted up?
No.
And I don't believe they have to come back to us a second time. And so I think we should answer their questions so that they can move it forward to us as soon as possible so that we can act on it and make sure that it complies with our plan of development.
If the commission would like, I can draft a letter for the chairman's signature saying what you just did, send it to the manager, if you'd like. Okay, I'll do that.
That's up to the commission. You got any concerns about it, Mike? I know you do, but I think what I see is there's one thing that's blaring that sticks out to me when I look at the plan. I think that's a wonderful plan. I think they did a tremendous job with the placement of the building, in the parking, and all the rest of the thing. I think it's a great plan. But one thing that sticks out to me is the Mazzicoli Way, which is the roadway between the town hall and the library. Our 2020 plan of development mandates us to eventually open that road again. And you could, if you could find it, you could basically paraphrase what the 2020 plan says. But I think it's important that they know about this before they finalize the plan. because it does affect some parking on the street. I don't know, Stanley, you got any opinions on whether why that road should not be opened? I'm just curious.
No, I remember when I was working, I was surprised that the town closed it.
Yeah, it is a town road. It's not
Right.
it's not a state road. It's not. And you got to. My contention is to get to the town hall, you have to go through all these gyrations of going to the center of town to Garfield Street or from Willard Avenue to Garfield. We don't have the Garfield address. It's a Cedar Street address.
I have a few things.
And for traffic circulation, I think that road should be opened, and it's part of our 2020 plan. Michael? Go ahead.
Yeah, if I remember, I think the board, with the Friends of the Library, one or the other, were worried about cars coming in across Cedar Street from the senior center. And they were, they thought it was as a safety concern, because you do have a number of seniors that use the library, walk across Cedar Street. So they were basically worried about safety.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the reason that they closed that road down was more that all the parking was in the front of the town hall, and everybody was just crossing the street at every which way. And so I think that was a big killer when they shut that access down. In the 2020 plans, it talks about it, and strategies which need to be considered on the town hall community center. Number one, it says expand the park.
What page are you on, so people can follow?
I'm on my notes.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Page 40. Page 40.
Thank you.
Let's see. Expand the parking at the library by locating the parking south of the library building on the east side of the Mazzicoli Way.
That's part of the proposal of the town hall, is to provide parking on that side of the street, which would eliminate the cross where people are parking in the town side and walking across the street. The library should have their own parking on their side of the street, so people that are going to the library are able to use that specific parking without having to cross a major street. And that's why we had to close the road. And we have an opportunity to rectify that, and I believe that that's what the 2020 plan is recommending us to do. Go ahead, finish, and then I want Stanley to comment.
Yeah, there was design the parking layout to ensure adequate buffer along the backyards of the adjacent Hart Lane residents. The buffer there between the residents and the library was extremely important. Also, develop a master plan for Mazzicoli Way that improves the pedestrian access between the uses, the library, the town hall, that calms the traffic and increases the public parking coordinated with the library's future expansion.
And do you know what page that is?
That's
I know
still on 40, I think.
No.
It could have been from another page I took that from. But the pedestrian safety was the main reason for the closure of the road. And back in the 2020 plan, they talked about when we get an opportunity to straighten that out, we need to, because this town hall has a Cedar Street address. And if you plug in the town hall, if you're a stranger and you're trying to come to the town hall, you can't find it.
They send you to Cedar Street, and you're driving around. I mean, it's cumbersome. We know because we live here, but anybody else, that road was specifically made as a through street, and we closed it because of safety concerns, because of the library. We have a chance with this renovation of the town hall to get parking on the other side of the street for the library to have their own parking for their expansion and everything. And then the town would have theirs. There would be no parking on the street. Commissioner Sobieski.
Yeah, I think when you have the final plan for the town hall with all the changes, and you wanna open that road, you'll have to get the DOT's permission to reopen it, because you have to put a turning lane in.
No, that's a town road. I don't think you have
No,
to get
I'm
the-
saying on Cedar Street, because you got 2 lanes in each direction. And if you look in front of the senior center, they put a turning lane into the senior center. I'm saying they may have to restripe it to narrow the lanes down and put a turning lane going into there. That's all I'm suggesting, because I mean, it was closed, and I know there's a sign up there that says no left turn. That's hung up above the signal there, so I'm just suggesting.
Any other comments or input from the commission as to why it was closed and why we were mandated by the 2020 plan to open it again?
I fully agree with you that what you're saying is we need to get that open. I'm just suggesting that be put in.
Yeah, there's a procedure that has to follow to open it, but we got to show it. Right now, the plan shows it as, the town hall plan shows it as still being closed. And we've brought to the attention of the architect and everybody involved, the town manager, the building committee, they've been aware that this commission is mandated to get that road open. And they designed it with the road closed. I mean, we're not asking, I think that's something that that they should take care of now, not until the plan is finalized, and they should know about that now. The report from this commission to the council should say, this is what we're mandated to do. We're saying we got to do it. You decide. If you don't want to take our recommendation, then leave it closed.
Right.
We're only recommending to the council. We're not the final word or the law that they got to do what we want. But I don't know, Mr. Planner, what do you think?
It's on page 28. I found what you were looking for. Right. I would need to read this more carefully and see what the building committee has recommended before I make express any opinion about this.
They have a hammerhead there with parking on the roadway.
Mm-hmm. Basically the way it is now.
Yes, basically.
Yeah, I see the.
You could have some parking on one side or the other, but you can't have parking on both sides.
In front of the library, I think there's enough room.
There's enough room to put parking, maybe handicap parking on the library side, close to the door.
Yeah.
So that your handicap parking is closer to the entrance to the library.
If there's limited,
that's what I would suggest.
If there's limited parking, and like you said, Mr. Chairman, if there's some handicap parking over on this closer to the library entrance, and then on the other side, I believe the architect has an entranceway for human services, which they kind of wanted to keep it separate from other entrances. I think they had maybe 6 or 7 spots there just for human services to go into the building there. If you kept it to that and we made some changes to make sure that there was safe pedestrian crossways and for the roadway, then it would work to open it up, because the majority of the parking for the library is on their own land. So I think that's what we need to try to express to them.
Okay, so I'll draft a letter for the chairman's signature.
Yep. Okay. I think that would answer the questions that were brought up at the council meeting, and then they can make a determination whether they want to send it here or not. But it's got to be on the record that what we're mandated to do, and that I don't want it to look like that we're shirking what our responsibilities to the 2020 plan.
I just have a question on the road, because obviously that part of it's a little bit new to me. I do remember when that road was open, but I was fairly new to town at the time. And would we be looking for a one-way road there or two-way traffic?
Two-way.
Two-way. Okay. I'm just asking. You know, because one-way would give you a little more room if we did a one-way in and then let them go out through Garfield.
It's a wide road, there's plenty of room for the two-way. And still have handicap parking on the library side, a few parking spaces on the town side, and still have both, in and out there. I think that the speed limit needs to, I'm not sure what the speed limit is on that. Right now, there's no speed limit because it's closed, but I think that speed limit should be down to the minimum. And I think that we should check the speed limit on Garfield and check the safety over there.
We'll put some speed control measures in there.
Yeah, I was thinking about
Yep.
if they decided to do that, that we would suggest that they put some kind of traffic calming effects on the road, either rumble strips or something.
And then a better, the same safe pedestrian crossing that we need at the library, between the library and the town hall. We also need that same pedestrian safety between the town hall and Mill Pond to make sure that there's a safe access for people, for the kids to cross over. There's also some, on the bend of Garfield there's some trees that could be cut to improve the sight lines there.
Yeah, coming out of one of those, I think
Next
it
to
might
the
be
bus
Audubon or one of those.
Yeah.
Cars have to come almost into the oncoming traffic lane to see traffic. So, yeah, something does need to be done there.
Same thing heading towards Willard, right on the
Yeah.
curve.
Yeah.
So maybe we can check that.
Okay, just the only thing, any other commissioner remarks? I have no closing remarks. We covered basically what I wanted to talk about, the 824. We get a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Yeah, let somebody